Hi Tricia, how you doing? Okay, let's go ahead and take a look. This is coming along beautifully. Really nice work. Illustrative technique is gorgeous. I think the reflections on the bottle just really hammer this thing home. It just adds so much dimension to the piece. And I mean, you can almost feel the glass bottle, and that's really impressive. Great job on that illustration. I think these are interesting too. Now, I remember I had mentioned that you may consider those just kind of solid rendering of a marijuana leaf, and these are more abstract representations, but they work nonetheless. So I'm interested in the reasoning. I think one of the reasons I would think not to use um, that kind of standard illustration of a marijuana leaf is because it is predictable. And I completely understand wanting to stay away from being predictable as a designer and predictable as an illustrator. So I certainly respect your decision in that regard. Okay, so we have it looks like you're using copper plate for the hemp oil, and then I don't know what this typeface is, but it's a little distressed. Boy, there's not a PDF submitted with this, and this is why I love it when you guys submit a PDF and then also post the work in right in line with your body copy. And the reason is because sometimes I like to zoom in and check some things out. But I can do a system zoom on this, but you won't see this in the video. But yeah, those are distressed, those areas around the CBD. And I'm not real sure if there's a real conceptual tie between using a distressed typeface and the presentation of CBD, hemp oil, or cannabis oil. Do you see what I'm saying? So without any kind of conceptual tie there, I'm not real sure if that's a real a decision that's based on sound reasoning or the aesthetic associated with it. And again, boy, I'm just not sure about that type of. I believe one of your classmates had mentioned that as well. So the other thing is, I think that in terms of typography down here, I think this presentation of the CBD in that typeface and in that yellow, it disrupts the flow of the type. It's a little bit different. It doesn't line up with the X height or the ascender height of the body copy that it's placed with. So it basically I think it impedes hierarchy because right now you're just drawn right there, right there, right there. So I would recommend just presenting CBD normally in your traditional typesetting that you have associated with this. And then in this, boy, I think you can use a different typeface. I would recommend if you're going to combine a typeface with this copper plate right here, I would recommend you combine um, a sans serif typeface. I think that'll be a little more interesting. Since this has serifs, I think it would be a more interesting combination. The if for a poster, I think this piece might be a little bit text heavy, but that's okay. I don't think it's a problem. One of the things I do want to talk about in typography is the gray background. I think the gray background kind of, how do I put this? It isolates the typography from the composition. So instead of allowing the type to work in the symbiotic relationship with the composition, you're kind of creating this situation where the type looks like it's been placed over the composition. Do you see what I'm saying? My recommendation is to remove the boxes altogether, okay? And how do I say this? A lot of young designers want to place things behind color boxes. And the reason that we recommend you don't do that is because it actually creates separation from the type and the composition you're placing it on because you're placing it on this separation, this box. So it sometimes impedes the ability for type to work seamlessly in the composition as opposed to having the appearance that it's placed over the composition. Okay. Now there's a couple of things you can try. You can try removing these type boxes altogether. All right. The issue that you're going to have here is that you've got some of these leaves in the background. So you may have to make some additional typographic adjustments based on those leaves and the readability of this type on those leaves. It may even consider moving those leaves around so that the typography doesn't reside right on a busy part of the leaf, impeding the readability. At the very least, I would say reduce I would change the hue and reduce the opacity of these boxes. I would change the hue to something in this green parent hue family. And you can change the value, but do something in that parent hue value and just reduce the heck out of that transparency. So instead of having this really drastic difference between the white type and the gray background, you have more of a white on a light green background. That's going to reduce the separation with the background. But I would like to see you remove those boxes altogether. Right now, I think it's a little type heavy. This area of the poster is really super dense and very, very busy. The size and the visual weight of the bottle itself circumvents that nicely. So there's the piece itself is not necessarily out of balance because of the counterweight of this large bottle here, but nonetheless, I think that that this is really, really super dense, this area. And again, removing those boxes is going to rectify that problem. I think that one of the things that you also want to keep in mind is this would all be considered body copy. So when you make typographic changes and try to create typographic variety based on the combination of typefaces, typically you're going to do that in the combination of a headline and then body copy. Okay, or a headline and a subhead. So you have a headline that's in a sans serif and a subhead that's in a serif. Or you have a headline that's in a serif and body copy that's in a sans serif. But effectively, you wouldn't make changes to the body copy itself because that would seem to be more like a mistake than added variety. I hope that makes sense. And that's what we see right here. We see this sans serif here and this serif face used here. I think it creates some uncomfortable visual tension because they're so dissimilar that they really almost look like they don't belong together. A lot of that has to do with the size. This is so much smaller than this. But I think by using the same typeface here in this body copy, I think that's going to rectify that situation. It's going to reduce the typographic color, which means the density associated with a given typeface, and it'll reduce the visual weight in that portion of the poster itself. Okay, a couple of final comments. I don't think that the CHO, the formula, I mentioned this last week, but I think this is just, again, there's a lot of information there. Is this really needed? Is this chemical formula needed? I don't think it is. I think if one thing that you could possibly do is remove this, okay, and just have the blank bottle. Or if that, you could replace that with something like CBD right there. Okay, and then I would remove the formula from the drop as well. I just think that's just a little bit of information overload. And with information that's seemingly not important or relevant to your average viewer, I mean, your average viewer won't really even understand what this is, the chemical formula and the chemical compound. Did you see what I'm saying? So I think to reduce some of the busyness associated with that area right there, I would recommend removing those. Maybe replace that with, like I said, with CBD or with hemp oil or something. And I would also recommend, if you do place it, try to taper that type so that it looks like it's conforming to the curvature of the bottle. Other than that, one final comment, and I think that this will make a lot of sense to you, but right now you've got the color of the bottle set at brown, right? And these wonderful light and shadow and highlight areas. And then the dropper is super dissimilar to the bottle. And the reason it's dissimilar is because it's a different hue, and it's also the stroke is a different color. Not a different color than the bottle, a different color than the stroke of the bottle. Right now you've got no stroke or with a black stroke, right? Got some areas around brown and the thread areas, but the main stroke is black. So having a brown stroke here creates a disconnect, and having a different hue for the actual dropper itself, I think, creates another disconnect. What I would recommend is using a black stroke on this. Highlights are great, but in the center area, use a brown hue, this brown hue somewhere. And that's going to draw a connection between the dropper and the bottle further indicating that this is a drop coming from the bottle that was from the bottle. Do you see what I'm saying? So you're creating meaning, a relationship, a visual relationship based on the dropper and its relationship with the bottle. Do you see what I'm saying? So right now I think they're a little dissimilar, so the viewer may not immediately make the connection that this dropper is from this bottle. Does that make sense? All right, other than that, hey, fantastic job. Sorry, I'm over 10 minutes. I get carried away, I know. All right, great job. Really super, super job with your progress here. You've been working hard, so fantastic. If you have any questions at all, please let me know. Thank you very much.